Like many working professionals, the protagonist had grown extremely tired of his life and used to play a fantasy game to relax his mind. However, when he learned about his illness and realized that he had very little time left, he decided to stop everything else and focus on his hobby, hoping to find happiness in it. Unfortunately, he was unable to achieve either success or the happiness he desired. Later, it was revealed that he had been reincarnated into the very fantasy game he was playing. It was then implied that his next life would unfold as he explored that world which had always been his dream, in search of the happiness he had longed for. The story begins with the protagonist battling a monster alongside his party. After stabbing the dragon, he remembered how they had struggled to devise strategies and had done everything possible to confront the boss monster. Eventually, they succeeded in defeating it, and he felt immense happiness. It was later revealed that all of this had taken place within a VR game he had been playing. However, he suddenly collapsed in severe pain and recalled that he had lived a good life. It was explained that he had previously been informed he had only 3 years to live due to an incurable heart disease, and upon hearing this, his chances of survival had dropped to 0. He had also learned that the next attack he experienced would be his last. Because of this, it was stated that Eldo had quit his job to focus entirely on his hobby, playing a game called Broken Balance Online, in which he had become one of the strongest players. Although his illness had prevented his reflexes and speed from matching those of others, his exceptional knowledge had made him invaluable, allowing him to help defeat a boss that had been considered impossible for the past 3 years. It was conveyed that he had wished to live longer, but despite everything, he somehow gathered the strength to get up. When he saw his teammates chatting about him, he sent a message thanking them all. After that, it was stated that he had passed away, hoping that he would find happiness in his next life. Sometime later, he opened his eyes on a bed which left him confused. He seemed to recall that he had been reborn at the moment of his death. It was noted that he retained all the memories of his past life and felt as though he had been reincarnated into a different world with those memories intact. It was further explained that as he tried to understand his situation, he realized that his name was Eldo, the 4th son of a lower noble family living in a remote area. He understood that he was not treated as a proper member of the family, and only his eldest sibling, Rado, spoke to him. Apart from Rado, no one treated him like a child, and it appeared that he was an unwanted child. It was stated that the reason for this treatment was that after his birth, the region had suffered 3 consecutive years of poor harvest, leading people to label Eldo as a god of pestilence. He had not been expelled from the house only because he was still underage. However, it was mentioned that he would turn 15 the next day and would officially be considered an adult. Therefore, he would have to attend his coming-of-age ceremony, after which he would be formally banished from the family. Despite this, it was conveyed that Eldo did not feel hopeless, as he realized he was now in the world of the game Broken Balance Online. It was explained that the coming-of-age ceremony was not the only feature from the game present in this world. There were also systems such as jobs, magic, and skills. The concept of a job did not refer to occupations like carpentry or engineering, but rather to fantasy roles such as swordsman or magician. It was further described that skills worked similarly to those in the game. For instance, a swordsman would first learn swordsmanship, while a magician would begin with basic magic such as a magic ball. Eldo confirmed this when his elder brother had previously bragged about such abilities. It was noted that Eldo's current job was novice, which referred to individuals without a proper class and was considered the weakest role. It was explained that Eldo attempted to experiment and discovered that by using self-care, he could perform a basic form of recovery magic. He realized that this was the lowest level of healing magic, something that even a novice could learn. It was further conveyed that Eldo felt the system of this world was almost identical to that of the game. However, there was one crucial difference. The general population had an overwhelming lack of knowledge regarding magic and skills. For example, although the self-care ability Eldo used was not very powerful, it consumed little magic and was extremely useful since anyone could learn it. Eldo had not seen anyone else using it. Eldo understood his situation was not entirely hopeless. In fact, it was quite the opposite. He felt that it was a blessing in disguise that he had been reincarnated into the world of the game. Rather than trying to remain in that area, he believed it would be better for him to be expelled so that he could grow stronger, as his knowledge of the game would allow him to survive more easily. It was then stated that his brother, Rado, interrupted him, reminding him that the next day was an important one and asking whether he was prepared. Eldo replied that he was, but he had decided not to undergo the coming-of-age ceremony. Rado was confused and asked whether Eldo was worried about the cost, acknowledging that although their father and the others did not wish to spend much on it, it was still their duty to perform the ceremony. It was explained that Eldo responded that it was not about the cost. He simply did not want to go through with it. He recalled that there were 2 ways to obtain a job. The first was through the coming-of-age ceremony, where one could pay a priest to receive blessings. This method also existed in the game and was a simple process, and however, it did not allow a person to choose their job, and most of the jobs obtained through this method were basic ones with limited potential. Furthermore, once assigned, the job could not be changed, no matter what one tried in the future. It was further conveyed that the second method, which was considered the most fundamental in the game, was to obtain a job at the church in the royal capital. That church offered far superior results, allowing individuals to acquire higher-level jobs. Eldo was certain that he would leave the village without undergoing the ceremony. It was mentioned that Raito expressed concern about how their father would react upon hearing that Eldo refused to participate, and he questioned whether Eldo truly intended to spend the rest of his life as a novice. Eldo replied that he had several things he wanted to accomplish and asked Raito to inform their father about his decision, as he believed their father would not listen if he spoke directly. Seeing Eldo's earnest expression, Raito agreed to convey the message. It was then narrated that the next day, while Eldo was still asleep, his father came to wake him and told him to get ready. Eldo recalled that the last time he had spoken to his father was about 3 months earlier, and he had almost forgotten his father's name. His father then threw a bag at him and told him to keep his word, stating that refusing the ceremony was a good decision since it would benefit the family. He added that he was pleased and ordered Eldo to leave the mansion, warning him never to return. It was described that Eldo left with only a sword, his clothes, and about 10,000 gil, knowing that 1 gil was equivalent to 1 yen from his previous world. At the entrance, he encountered Raito, who asked if he was leaving already. Eldo replied that there was no reason for him to stay any longer and that he planned to go to a neighboring town to become an adventurer. It was stated that Raito was surprised to hear that Eldo intended to become an adventurer despite being only a novice. Eldo said that if nothing else worked, he would rely on swordsmanship to become an adventurer. Raito replied that Eldo needed a proper reason or preparation before leaving and then showed him a bag containing 100,000 gil. He offered the money to Eldo, suggesting that he use it to establish a stable source of income before it ran out. It was described that Eldo felt grateful to have such a caring brother, but he refused to take the money, saying that the 10,000 gil he had received from their father was sufficient. Raito accepted his decision and took the money back, but he added that if Eldo ever needed it, he could come and take it any time. It was further conveyed that Eldo thanked him, but insisted that he would manage on his own. After that, he finally left his house, determined to head toward a city with a guild, as the Adventurers Guild was a national organization that knew the best routes to the capital. However, it was noted that before setting out, Eldo realized that his sword was of very poor quality, so he preferred to avoid encountering any monsters along the way. While he was in the forest, Eldo noticed a wolf. The creature suddenly stood up upon sensing a sound. It was explained that Eldo was aware that his enemy detection ability was very low, and he could only detect enemies when they made noise, just as the monsters did. It was further conveyed that Eldo was uncertain whether the wolf would allow him to escape and seek help. Eldo recognized the creature as a wolf-shaped demon, which belonged to one of the stronger classes. He understood that he could not let his guard down, as it was his first battle in that world. It was further explained that he recalled the sensation of swinging a sword, realizing that a player's skill was the most important factor. When the wolf rushed to attack him, Eldo focused intensely, determined to grasp every detail of the fight. It was then narrated that he successfully dodged the wolf's attack and delivered a slash, which turned out to be a critical hit. He understood that striking an opponent with precise timing and sufficient strength could deal multiple times more damage than a normal attack. It was conveyed that Eldo grew confident in his abilities, as the same system from the game existed in this world. Therefore, all the techniques he had learned in the game were applicable here as well. He felt assured that he could survive and manage in this world using his knowledge. Eldo felt as though his body was moving naturally, which amazed even him. He realized that if he performed at around 70% of his ability or more, his attacks would result in critical hits, and he would be regarded as an experienced player. It was further explained that he wondered whether this was due to the instincts he had developed while playing the game in his previous life, which still remained with him. Afterward, it was stated that he decided to dismantle the wolf, as dismantling allowed one to extract useful materials that could later be used to craft weapons and shields. It was mentioned that many people in the game used to complain about dismantling, saying it was unpleasant and troublesome, which had led to the implementation of an automatic dismantling system. However, it was conveyed that when Eldo attempted to use the auto-dismantling feature, nothing happened. This made him feel disappointed, and he wondered whether in this world monsters would simply disappear instead. It was then narrated that Eldo decided to dismantle the wolf manually. As he did so and mentioned cleaning it, the wolf's body suddenly began to emit a bright light. It was concluded that Eldo realized that although this world was similar to the game, it was not exactly the same. Eldo eventually reached Iliot town. While he was wandering around, a man approached him and asked whether he was lost. Eldo inquired about the location of the Adventurers Guild. It was noted that the man observed Eldo's sword and pouch and assumed that he was a young noble who had come to become an adventurer. When Eldo confirmed this, the man commented that his equipment was of very poor quality and suggested that he must have been driven out of his house. He added that whoever had given him such equipment likely intended for him to die. Eldo agreed with this assessment. It was further conveyed that the man felt sympathy for Eldo and offered him some advice. He told Eldo to stop speaking in formal language, as adventurers did not use such speech. He explained that if bandits overheard a conversation, they could identify the leader based on the manner of speaking. Therefore, adventurers deliberately spoke in a way that made it difficult to determine hierarchy within a group. He warned that if Eldo continued speaking formally, others would think he lacked even basic knowledge and would mock him. Eldo agreed and adjusted his way of speaking. The man then guided him toward the guild. After they parted, it was narrated that Eldo reflected on how adventurers did not present themselves with formal politeness. He even recalled that when addressing his father, a feudal lord, people did not always use formal language. It was then described that Eldo finally arrived at the Ilia branch of the Adventurers Guild. Upon entering, he noticed a world map, which showed 2 major capitals located on a neighboring continent across the sea. He thought that traveling between continents would be troublesome, although the nearest continent did not seem too far. He decided that his immediate goal would be to travel there eventually. However, it was stated that he first chose to examine the available requests at the guild. While doing so, he learned that many different types of monsters inhabited the surrounding area, allowing him to plan his next steps. It was further explained that he noticed a request for slaying wolves, but it was categorized as a C-rank quest, which confused him. As it was the 3rd highest among 6 ranks, he found it strange that a monster he had defeated in a single strike would be assigned such a high rank. This led him to suspect that something was unusual. He then checked the F-rank requests where such tasks would normally belong, but instead found only weak monsters such as kick rabbits, biting rats, and wild boars. It was conveyed that Eldo was puzzled, as he had never encountered such low-ranking monsters in the game and did not know how to interpret the situation. He wondered whether the wolf he had killed was truly the same type as those listed in the higher ranks. Finally, it was stated that he decided to present the wolf's fangs at the receptionist's counter first. As Eldo moved to the next counter, the guild receptionist, Teresa, asked whether he had come to sell raw materials. Eldo confirmed that he had brought monster fangs, although he was unsure of the exact type of monster they belonged to. It was noted that Teresa appeared confused, as Eldo claimed to have defeated the monster himself, yet did not know what it was. She remarked that even for a beginner, fighting without knowledge of one's enemy was dangerous and somewhat reckless. It was further conveyed that Eldo revealed he was a novice who had not yet registered with the guild and asked whether he could still sell the materials. Teresa explained that he would not be able to sell them without registration. However, she added that even after registering, the ability to sell would depend on the market demand for the specific monster parts, and there was no guarantee they would be accepted. It was then stated that Eldo asked whether it would be quicker if he showed the item directly. When he presented the fang, Teresa was visibly surprised and identified it as a wolf's fang. She questioned whether Eldo had purchased it from somewhere, explaining that some people brought materials from other shops, but selling such items without completing an official guild request would not count as an achievement. Eldo began to suspect that the creature he had defeated was indeed the same wolf Teresa had identified. He remarked that he had defeated it easily and found it hard to believe that it was a C-rank monster. Teresa confirmed that it was indeed C-rank, but Eldo argued that the one he had encountered seemed weaker than usual. It was explained that Teresa responded by saying that monsters of the same species generally did not differ much in strength. She also pointed out that although Eldo claimed to have killed it recently, the fangs he presented were unusually clean. It was further conveyed that Eldo felt it did not matter who had killed the monster, as his main priority was obtaining money. He then asked how much he would receive for selling the fangs and whether he was still allowed to sell them. It was stated that Teresa replied that although the sale would not count as an official achievement, he could still sell them. She estimated their value at around 32,000 gil and added an extra 2,000 gil due to their excellent condition. It was noted that Eldo was surprised by the amount and decided to sell them. He then asked whether he could also register with the guild. Teresa agreed, explaining that he would need to take an entrance exam, which required a fee of 5,000 gil. It was then narrated that Eldo accepted the condition and Teresa deducted the fee from his earnings before handing him the remaining 29,000 gil. Afterward, she asked whether he currently had a job class. When Eldo answered that he was a novice, she warned him that if he failed the admission exam, the fee would not be refunded. Being curious, Eldo wondered whether she was going to reject his application. However, she explained that although some guilds rejected such applications, instead they allowed applicants to take the exam and if they failed, choose a different career, as they believed it was for their own good. Eldo then wondered if the exam was supposed to be easy. She replied that it would be easy for people who had jobs other than novice. She then showed him the available exam options and told him to choose one, adding that he would be treated the same regardless of the job he selected. As Eldo looked at the requirements for using job-exclusive skills, he realized that he could not pass the exam as a novice since he had no combat skills. The only option available to him was the swordsman path, but it had very difficult and unusual requirements. At that time, Eldo was a novice with low stats and no combat abilities. He felt that his level was around 1 and did not believe he could defeat a well-trained swordsman. However, he reasoned that even if he lost, he would only lose 5,000 gil, so he decided to give it a try. After making his choice, Desai agreed and informed him that the exam would be held in the training area. She told him to wait there and then went inside. After a while, she called him in as well. Inside, Eldo saw a man standing in front of him. The man insulted him, calling him a fool and questioning whether he really wanted to become an adventurer. Eldo felt that he could not win, so he said that he would appreciate it if the man went easy on him. However, the man refused, explaining that if Eldo became a novice adventurer without proper ability, he would end up dying pointlessly, and it was his duty to prevent that. Eldo understood that the man wanted him to withdraw from the exam, as his stats were probably 10 times higher than his own. He felt that he would not even be able to last a second against him. Nevertheless, since he had already decided to take the exam, he resolved to give it his all. He requested that the man avoid causing him any serious injury. In response, the man assured him not to worry, stating that he was a professional. The man then picked up a sword and said that he would only inflict minor injuries. Eldo felt that it was better not to expect him to go easy. He then asked whether he should also use one of the swords. The man rudely replied that if Eldo had a sword he was accustomed to, he could use that instead. Eldo clarified that he had an actual blade rather than a wooden one, like the man's. The man responded that it did not matter, as Eldo would not be able to land a single hit on him. However, Eldo still preferred to use a wooden sword, and the man eventually agreed, telling him to choose one. Eldo went to choose the lightest sword, thinking that since they did not need to kill their opponent, a wooden sword would be more suitable. After making his choice, both of them prepared themselves. Teresa decided to act as the referee and asked whether they were ready. When they agreed, she gave the signal to begin the training exam. Eldo felt that there was a huge gap in power between them. He believed that if there was any chance of winning, it would come at the exact moment he used his skill. He knew that a swordsman's skill was far more powerful than a regular attack, but it could not alter movement midway. However, he also realized that if his opponent did not use any skill, he would not be able to do anything against such overwhelming physical strength. As the man rushed forward with a glare, Eldo sensed that he was about to swing downward. He thought that if he simply defended, he might not lose immediately. At the same time, he reasoned that if the attack was a downward swing, it could be avoided with a slight movement. The man then leaped forward and used a skill called Guard Crash, announcing it as he attacked. Eldo was confused because he knew that the skill was meant to break through an opponent's guard using overwhelming force. However, he realized that using such a move while he was already dodging meant the man expected him to stay in place and take the attack. Seizing the opportunity, Eldo swiftly moved aside to evade the strike and found an opening. He thought that as long as he did not land a critical hit, he would have nothing to complain about. However, his attack ended up being a critical hit, sending the man flying and leaving even Teresa shocked. Teresa immediately stopped the match. Eldo felt confused, wondering whether he had really won so easily. The man too was shocked that he had been sent flying by Eldo, especially since Eldo did not even possess any skills. Eldo then decided to continue pretending until the end. He extended his hand to help his instructor up, thinking that despite everything, the instructor was actually a good person. Eldo wondered whether he had actually passed the test. The instructor, though reluctant to admit it, stated that Eldo had indeed passed. He also expressed curiosity about where Eldo had learned such swordsmanship. Eldo knew that he could not say he had learned it from playing a game, so he replied that he had taught himself. He reflected on how, in the game, he had been able to swing his sword endlessly without getting tired and spar as much as he wanted without getting hurt. He also recalled discussing late into the night with his friends about how to swing a sword more efficiently. The instructor remarked that it was truly impressive that Eldo had learned everything on his own. However, Eldo admitted that he had only won because the instructor had gone easy on him, adding that if the instructor had been serious, he could have defeated him easily. The instructor looked confused, and Eldo explained that the instructor had deliberately used Guard Crusher in a way that allowed him to lose on purpose. Despite this, the instructor continued to act confused, and Eldo felt that he was pretending not to understand until the very end. Afterward, Eldo and Teresa went to the reception desk where she congratulated him on passing the exam and informed him that he was now a member of their guild. She then handed him a guild card as proof. Upon receiving it, Eldo noticed that his name was engraved on the card and that his rank was listed as F rank. They then discussed the guidelines, and Teresa recommended that Eldo listen carefully. Eldo agreed, and she began with the most important part, the obligations. She explained that he must not submit false reports, must not divulge confidential information from clients, and must obey the laws of the country in which he was working. She stated that these were the 3 fundamental obligations of an adventurer. Eldo became curious about what would happen if he broke any of these rules. Teresa explained that the consequences could range from suspension to a permanent ban from registering again. In cases involving criminal acts, the punishment would depend on the country's laws, and in the worst-case scenario, he could even face the death penalty. Hearing this, Eldo was surprised and wondered whether those were the only mandatory obligations. He asked if adventurers were required to provide help during emergencies. He reflected that in the game, emergency requests forced players to participate, and if such a system existed here, joining the guild might become troublesome. Teresa clarified that they did not force adventurers to take on any requests, not even during emergencies, and reaffirmed that the only mandatory obligations were the 3 she had mentioned. Eldo acknowledged this and asked her to continue. She then moved on to explain deadlines and penalties. She stated that if he failed to complete a request within the given time, it would be considered incomplete, and he would have to pay a penalty fee for failing the task. She advised him to be especially careful with urgent requests as they carried higher penalties. After understanding this, Eldo wondered what would happen if he completed a request but failed to report it before the deadline. Teresa explained that deadlines were set based on the location of the request and emphasized that even if he completed it, failing to report it within the deadline would still result in it being marked as incomplete. She then concluded her explanation and told him that he could ask any further questions without hesitation. Eldo did not find anything unclear but decided to gather more information. He asked whether the guild had any bestiaries or combat manuals. Teresa replied that he could borrow them from the guild library and offered to have someone bring them to him. However, she informed him that he would not be allowed to take them outside and that if he wished to do so, he would need to buy them or make a handwritten copy. Eldo was pleased to hear this and said that it would be very helpful. He then asked her to bring him the bestiary and combat manual most commonly used by adventurers. After thinking for a moment, Teresa selected a commonly used book and handed it to him, saying that it would be useful if he planned to explore the surrounding areas. The book was titled Monsters in the Outskirts of Iliot. Eldo decided to start with that bestiary. As he read, he learned about creatures such as the teakrabbit, beating rat, and sand mole, all listed under the F rank category, monsters he had never seen before. The same unfamiliarity continued as he moved on to the E rank and D rank sections. However, when he reached the C rank section, he found creatures like scorpions, wolves, and vampire bats. This confused him, and he wondered why such creatures were categorized as C rank, questioning whether it was some kind of joke. Eldo then noticed a creature called the Rage Wolf, which was classified as B rank. He recalled that defeating one of them was enough for a player to no longer be considered a beginner. This led him to wonder whether all adventurers in this world were A rank or something similar. He decided to check the A rank monster section, only to find that it was completely blank. He asked Teresa whether that meant there were no A rank monsters in the area. This made him feel somewhat relieved, as it seemed there were no extremely powerful monsters nearby. After that, he turned his attention to the combat manual. As he read through it, he reflected on the advanced sections, such as positioning against multiple enemies and dealing with attacks from human opponents. Finding it to be mostly basic information, he chose to skip over those parts. However, he soon realized that there were no further details on advanced techniques. He began to wonder about one-on-one combat strategies, particularly how to anticipate an opponent's actions. Eventually, he came across a concept called the Miracle Strike, which was described as a rare occurrence where attack power would suddenly multiply. The manual mentioned that many had attempted to recreate it deliberately, but none had succeeded. According to the theory presented, even the world's strongest adventurer had only about a 20% chance of successfully performing such a strike. Eldo found this surprising and wondered if it meant that Even the strongest adventurer had once started as a beginner without fully understanding such techniques. He questioned whether they truly did not know the method to execute critical strikes, even though he himself understood how to perform them. He reasoned that if they were unaware of such a fundamental concept, the 20% success rate made sense. He further thought that if they lacked knowledge of something so basic, it might indicate a broader lack of advanced understanding. Eldo concluded that this world likely did not have a well-developed tradition of documenting advanced combat knowledge. If that were the case, he realized that he could not completely trust the information provided in the bestiary either. Teresa asked Eldo whether the information had been helpful. Eldo replied that it had and thanked her, then asked how he could travel to the capital. She appeared surprised and explained that he would first need to go to a coastal city, from where he could take a ferry to the capital. However, she added that the fare was extremely expensive for the general public, as the ferry was mostly reserved for guild members and government officials. Although a few seats were available for civilians, they cost around 3 million. Hearing this, Eldo was taken aback and asked if there was any other way to reach the capital. Teresa explained that he could work for a large trading firm, become affiliated with a noble family that had connections to the capital, or obtain a high-ranking position within the guild to gain access to the ferry. As a final option, she jokingly mentioned that he could swim across the sea. Eldo immediately dismissed that idea and stated that he would instead save up 3 million to afford the journey. He realized that the coastal city was not too far away, and since he was unsure about the strength of the monsters there, he decided to remain in the town for a while to earn money and learn how to fight them properly. With that in mind, he expressed his willingness to take on a request and asked if she could recommend one suitable for beginners. Teresa was surprised that he was ready to take a request so soon, but she recommended an E-rank quest. Eldo hesitated and wondered whether, as an F-rank adventurer, it was appropriate for him to take on an E-rank quest. Teresa assured him that the quest was not strictly limited by rank, so there would be no issue. However, Eldo noticed that the reward was unusually high and questioned it. Teresa explained that it was because the quest was difficult and was essentially equivalent to a D-rank task. Eldo declined and asked for an F-rank quest instead, explaining that he was not in a hurry to take on requests above his level. Teresa pointed out that he had already defeated the instructor and that taking F-rank quests would be a waste of his time. Eldo replied that he had only won because the instructor had gone easy on him and that he had merely managed to land a miracle strike. He added that the admission exam was designed to make applicants fail and that there was no way the instructor would have taken it lightly. Hearing this, Teresa was shocked and asked if he had just mentioned a miracle strike. Eldo confirmed it, explaining that there was no way a normal attack could have sent the instructor flying. Teresa responded that even if it had been pure luck, it still indicated that Eldo had considerable talent. However, Eldo himself believed that it was merely a simple trick that anyone could perform with enough understanding. She then showed him another request and suggested that he take on a C-rank quest. Eldo immediately refused, feeling that she was practically trying to get him killed. Instead, he checked the F-rank requests and found one that involved hunting kick rabbits, which offered a reward of about 1,500 gil per rabbit. Deciding that it was suitable for him, Eldo chose to take that request. Teresa did not object this time and agreed to let him proceed. After processing the request, Teresa informed Eldo that there were currently no monsters other than kick rabbits in the second forest, so it should be relatively safe for him. However, she cautioned him that he could never be too careful and advised him to prepare himself as much as possible. Eldo wondered if she truly believed that and asked her to tell him the location of the second forest. After receiving directions from Teresa, he left the guild. Outside, he encountered the instructor, who asked whether he was heading out on a request. The instructor also referred to him as the strongest novice. However, Eldo denied this, explaining that he was not strong and that he had simply taken on a request to hunt kick rabbits in the second forest of Iliot. The instructor seemed confused, so Eldo clarified that Teresa had told him that only kick rabbits appeared in that area, making it a safe choice for him. He also mentioned that she had recommended higher rank requests, but he had declined them. The instructor acknowledged his decision and wished him good luck before taking his leave. Eldo responded that he would do his best. Later, standing on a mountain cliff, Eldo looked out over the vast forest. Despite the seemingly simple task, he felt that the kick rabbits were still dangerous opponents for a novice like him, and that underestimating them would be a mistake. When he heard a rustling sound, he initially thought it might be a cute rabbit. However, he soon felt that something was off, as the rabbit looked far too dreadful, more like a wolf. Upon closer observation, he realized that a pack of lesser wolves was approaching him. He became irritated, thinking that Teresa had told him the area would be safe, yet she had actually sent him to deal with the very same lesser wolf request she had recommended earlier. By the time he realized the truth, it was already too late to escape. With 6 wolves charging straight at him, he understood that his only option was to fight back. He decided to pretend to confront them head-on, only to dodge at the last moment and strike. As his plan worked once, he continued applying the same strategy, recalling the rule of thumb that when facing multiple enemies, one should try to create as many one-on-one situations as possible. As the wolves broke their formation and attempted to regroup, he did not give them the chance. He kept slashing at them relentlessly. During the fight, he noticed that his body felt lighter than before, which made him wonder if he had leveled up. After the battle, he sheathed his sword while thinking that he was unsure whether this world even had a level-up system. To test his suspicion, he picked up a stone and used a reinforced stone throw. The stone shot forward at great speed, striking a tree and causing significant damage. From this, he concluded that he could now use level 2 skills from the novice class, something he had been unable to do earlier. This confirmed that he had indeed leveled up. Satisfied, he decided to head back. He thought that since he had managed to register with the guild and level up on his first day, things had not gone too badly. However, he also felt that he needed to return to the guild and teach the receptionist a proper lesson. As Eldo arrived at the guild, he showed the wolf corpse to the receptionist and wondered whether this was what they referred to as a kick rabbit. She remained calm and remarked that it was quite surprising, as there should not have been any lesser wolves in the kick rabbit forest. Eldo became confused and said that it was the first time he had ever heard of such a thing. She replied that she had already instructed him to go to the kick rabbit forest at the beginning, and if he had encountered lesser wolves, it likely meant that he had accidentally wandered into the second forest instead. Eldo realized that she was pretending not to know anything. However, he admitted that it might have been his mistake and said that because of that, he would not be able to complete the request. He then asked if she could cancel it. The receptionist appeared shocked and called it a blunder. She explained that she had already processed the request as a lesser wolf hunting mission by mistake, and since he had defeated them, the request was effectively completed. Eldo agreed, stating that he had defeated 6 wolves. Since the reward was 20,000 gil per wolf, it meant that he would receive 120,000 gil in total. Hearing this, Eldo was delighted. He began to think that she had intentionally given him a request suited to his strength, one that would yield a high reward. This made him feel that she was actually quite kind, as it was thanks to her that he had found such a profitable task. Encouraged by this, he asked if there would be more requests to hunt lesser wolves the following day. She agreed. The next day, Eldo first went to an armor shop. The owner welcomed him and asked what he was looking for. Eldo began examining the swords, saying that he wanted something suitable for himself. He knew that weapons were crucial for completing quests, and he needed a good one to compensate for his lack of stats in the future. However, none of the swords on display seemed satisfactory. He approached the shopkeeper and asked if he had any better ones. The man replied that such weapons would be expensive. Eldo said that he did not mind and was willing to give it a try. The shopkeeper then brought out a sword, and Eldo appeared pleased upon inspecting it. He decided to buy it, thinking that at least he would no longer have to worry about his weapon breaking during battles. However, the purchase left him completely broke, making him realize that he would need to earn a lot of money again. After that, Eldo went to Teresa and asked if there were any lesser wolf hunting requests available. She replied that there were still 32 kills remaining within the request limit. Eldo was confused upon hearing about a kill limit, so she explained that it referred to the number of monsters for which he would receive rewards. He could defeat more if he wanted, but he would not be paid beyond that limit. Eldo understood that killing more than necessary would be inefficient, so he decided to take on another request as well. Teresa added that defeating 32 wolves would take around 2 hours. Eldo felt that it would be troublesome to return again after completing it, so he preferred to accept another request at the same time. She seemed confused by his reasoning. Eldo estimated that his strength was around E rank. Since he was looking for a request that was not commonly completed, he chose a spear mouse subjugation request. He brought it to Teresa, who said that it was a perfect choice for him. After accepting the requests, Eldo headed toward the forest. He stated that he would finish the lesser wolf quest first and then move on to the spear mouse hunt. When he reached a river, he wondered if it was the spear mouse forest, as it looked somewhat different from how Teresa had described it. Soon, he spotted a mouse with a single horn and assumed it was a spear mouse. Believing he had found the hunting ground, he decided to kill it first. However, as soon as he drew his sword, the creature let out a loud sound. Eldo was confused when he suddenly heard rustling noises coming from all around him. He realized that the mouse had called its companions, and soon nearly 20 of them surrounded him. Thinking that he had to act before they could fully gather, he began attacking immediately. After slashing down one of them, he realized that these creatures were the worst possible match for him. Up until now, he had been compensating for his weak stats with skill alone. However, against such a large number of enemies, no matter how skillfully he fought, he would inevitably take damage. Even so, he had no choice but to continue. The mice charged at him, and Eldo prepared himself to cut them down one by one. As the battle continued, he felt that it was not as difficult as he had initially feared. Despite their numbers, he believed he could handle them. He used his skills efficiently, and whenever he was injured, he cast self-healing magic. He knew that managing his recovery timing was crucial, as a novice could not afford to waste MP carelessly. Remaining calm and focused, he continued fighting steadily until he was certain that he would defeat them all. In the end, Eldo defeated around 276 of them and returned to Teresa with their horns. She was visibly shocked upon seeing the number. Eldo thought that she was pretending again and questioned whether she had not said that the request was perfect for him, fully aware of the type of monsters involved. He explained that he had attacked one of them, which had then called the others, leading him to defeat all of them. Teresa replied that those were not the kind of monsters she had been referring to. Eldo was confused and asked whether they were not E-rank creatures, considering how many of them had gathered. She explained that while spear mice could form groups, they did not gather in such massive numbers. Upon examining the horns, she became even more puzzled, stating that they did not belong to ordinary spear mice. Normal ones were E-rank monsters, but these were entirely different. They were C-rank. Hearing this, Eldo asked if he had once again failed to receive a proper reward. Teresa, however, seemed more concerned and wondered why he was worried about the reward at all, since facing a group of army spear mice alone would normally mean certain death. Eldo replied that this was not something to worry about and asked whether she could simply change the request to one for army spear mice. She refused, but mentioned that materials from those creatures could be sold for a high price, around 20,000 gil each. Hearing this, Eldo sold all the materials to her, which left her shocked. She brought out his payment and explained that it even included platinum coins, each worth 1 million gil. She added that it had been a long time since she had to disperse platinum coins as a reward. She then warned him not to display such wealth inside the town, as it might attract thieves. Eldo wondered whether there were thieves in the town. She replied that the place was mostly safe, but even if he were attacked, he should be able to handle it. She then remarked that with such a reward, he could now travel to the capital. Eldo agreed, saying that he had been planning to leave as soon as possible. She commented that it would be a shame for him to leave, as it had been a long time since such a strong adventurer had appeared in the area. Eldo responded that he would return someday if he felt like it. She then asked what he intended to do in the capital, to which Eldo replied that he had something important to take care of that would help him progress as an adventurer. As he was about to leave, she called out to him and apologized for misleading him about the kick rabbit request. Eldo calmly replied that he did not mind, but advised her not to do such things to others, as someone might become seriously angry. She agreed. Eldo then departed, bidding farewell to everyone, including his instructor. His next destination was the port town of Minoton. Upon arriving, he asked a guard at the entrance where he could purchase a general ferry ticket to the capital. The guard informed him that he could buy one from the Maxia commercial firm. Though it would cost a considerable amount, Eldo remarked that it should be around 3 million gil and said that it would be fine. He thanked the guard and left. When he reached the Maxia commercial firm, he was amazed by the sheer size of the building. He approached the ticket counter and stated that he wanted to board a ship. The clerk asked whether he had a letter of introduction, but Eldo replied that he did not. The clerk then informed him that the ticket would cost around 3 million gil and asked whether he could afford it. Eldo showed him 3 platinum coins and asked if that would be sufficient. The man agreed and wondered whether Eldo was a well-known adventurer. Eldo denied it, saying that he was still unknown. The clerk then asked when he wished to depart. Eldo requested the earliest available departure, and the clerk informed him that a ship would be leaving in about 30 minutes, asking if that would be acceptable. Eldo agreed. Soon after, he boarded the ship as it set sail. He knew that it would take approximately 3 hours for him to reach the capital. Eldo noticed a symbol hanging on the ship and recalled that it was the relic known as the water traveling stone. He wondered whether it was being used to control the vessel. Just then, he observed 2 ladies working at a table with various materials, though they seemed to fail repeatedly. It appeared that they did not know the exact recipe required for brewing. Watching them, Eldo wondered if they were attempting to make a pale green spirit potion. One of the ladies noticed him and asked what he had just said. Eldo replied that he had mentioned the pale green spirit medicine and asked if he was mistaken. The lady and her servant looked surprised and asked whether he knew how to brew the potion. Eldo agreed that he knew the recipe as he had memorized it completely and said that he could help her if she wished. She asked him to prepare it and added that she would pay whatever price he requested. Eldo thought for a moment and decided that he might as well charge her for it. He then stated that he would ask for 10 million gil. The lady seemed surprised and asked if that was all he wanted. Eldo in turn became confused, wondering how much she had expected him to ask for. In the end, he He said that the amount was fine. After he successfully prepared the potion, the lady was extremely delighted. Eldo felt relieved that he had managed to brew it without any issues, but more importantly, he began to wonder about the lady's identity. He had noticed that one of the key ingredients, the sacred tree leaf, an extremely high-class item, was missing. The lady expressed that she did not have enough words to thank him and handed him several platinum coins. Eldo was taken aback and said that she was giving him too much, but she replied that it was fine as he had made enough for 2 bottles. She even wanted to give him more, but instead, she presented him with a token of appreciation from the Maxia company. She explained that it served as proof of trust and that if he showed it at any of their stores or within the capital, it would certify that he was trustworthy. Eldo was surprised and asked if she was truly willing to give him something so important. She replied that she could tell he was trustworthy just by hearing him speak, and added that she needed to be capable of making such judgments if she was to serve as the company's chairman. Eldo was confused by her words, but she soon introduced herself as Mina Maxia, the chairman of the company operating the ship. Eldo was genuinely surprised and said that he had never expected to gain the trust of someone like her, which made him deeply grateful. However, Mina responded that she should be the one thanking him, as they would not have obtained the potion without his help. She then asked for his name and wished him a pleasant journey, adding that she hoped to meet him again someday. As she was about to leave, Eldo noticed something in the sea and pointed it out, saying that something seemed to be approaching. When they looked more closely, Eldo observed that it appeared to be a ship designed to withstand monster attacks along the route. Mina decided to go and check the situation. Soon, the pilot spotted the real threat and became terrified as a sea dragon was approaching them. Mina was shocked, noting that they were nearly 500 kilometers away from the sea dragon's natural habitat, and wondered how it had appeared there. Eldo recalled that sea dragons were aquatic monsters far stronger than sea-rank wolves, and that they used spear-like arms to impale their opponents. He realized that if someone like him were struck even once, it would mean instant death. He then asked Mina whether they would be safe on the ship. She replied that the vessel was not designed to withstand a sea dragon. Without hesitation, she ordered that all capable fighters on board be gathered immediately, while everyone else was to be escorted inside as refugees. Eldo observed that it seemed the sea dragon was targeting the ship's mast. Mina wondered what they should do, but Eldo replied that there was nothing they could do about that. He explained that if the mast were destroyed, they would lose the water traveling stone and the ship would inevitably sink. Therefore, they had only one option left. As all those capable of fighting gathered, Eldo asked if there was anyone who could attack from long range. A few people raised their hands, and after counting, he noted that there were 3 mages and 2 archers. He remarked that they would have to make do with that. He then asked if there was anyone who could defend the mast from the sea dragon's attacks. No one responded. Mina stated that no one there could possibly stand against an A-rank monster, especially one that had almost never been defeated before. Hearing this, Eldo concluded that there was no other choice. He declared that he would take on the task himself. Eldo was ready to fight the sea dragon, and when he saw that it was within range, he instructed the attackers to use their powers against it. They launched a combined blast, but it initially seemed ineffective. Eldo noticed some damage on the dragon's body and pointed out that their attack had worked, urging them to continue. As they kept attacking, Eldo thought that if they maintained their offensive, they might be able to defeat it. However, their efforts did not seem very effective. Suddenly, the sea dragon plunged into the water and leapt out again to attack them. It came extremely close, and Eldo realized that the timing of its attack was crucial. He decided to perform a critical counter. As he struck, he realized that with such a technique, even a novice like him could deflect the attack of a monster like the sea dragon. Everyone was amazed that Eldo had managed to block the dragon's attack with just a sword, and they wondered who he really was. Eldo understood that everyone was getting excited, but he knew he was risking his life. He thought that if he used the critical counter correctly, he could deflect all of the dragon's attacks. Fortunately, the dragon's moves seemed easy to read. Hina told everyone not to stand idle and to continue attacking the sea dragon. As they did so, the dragon launched another attack, this time striking twice at once. Eldo felt that it would be impossible to handle. The second strike came at his side, and he barely dodged it, realizing how close it had been. He understood that if the angle or timing was even slightly off, they would fail to execute the critical counter. However, he also realized that he did not need to counter every attack. What mattered was defeating the dragon before the mast broke. As they continued attacking, Eldo praised everyone, thinking that they were close to victory. He noticed that the dragon had lost its stance and that its attack was heading elsewhere. He realized that it was now targeting Mina, Without hesitation, Eldo leapt forward to save her, thinking that the battle was almost over and that they just needed to finish it. They continued battling the sea dragon, and after some time it was finally defeated, leaving everyone in shock. A man expressed his gratitude to all the warriors and turned toward Eldo, referring to him as a powerful swordsman. However, they soon realized that Eldo was no longer there, as he had already gone inside. Eldo thought that he did not want to stand out too much, especially on a ship filled with guild staff and nobles. Mina, who was also there, wondered if Eldo felt the same way as she did. Eldo agreed, explaining that he had matters to attend to in the capital and preferred not to draw unnecessary attention. Mina said that she understood what Eldo meant, but she had heard that he had saved many lives that day. She swore in his name that she would repay that debt someday. Eldo responded that he would be waiting for that day. Meanwhile, on a small island, a group of people watched the ship in surprise, amazed that the sea dragon had been defeated. However, they remarked that it did not matter, as it was only a minor setback for them, the Garden of Despair. Back on the ship, Eldo learned that they would soon reach the capital and that everyone needed to prepare for deport. As he finally caught sight of the capital, he thought that it was the place where he would change his job. While on the boat, Eldo noticed a cathedral on a mountain. He used his magic to observe it more closely and wondered if those ruins were the cathedral of the capital that he had been searching for all this time. He saw a portrait of Jyas, the god of Job, carved into the wall. The place appeared abandoned, with no lights, and seemed to be in disrepair. He wondered what had happened and questioned whether the capital still had a cathedral dedicated to the god of Job. He believed that as long as such a place existed, he would be able to change his job. Mina asked him whether he needed something from the church, mentioning that he did not seem like the religious type. She added that if he needed to go there, she knew someone in the church who could help him. Eldo thought it was a great suggestion, as he had not heard of people in that world changing their jobs. Even in the worst-case scenario, he had been considering sneaking in. Feeling slightly apologetic, he asked if she could take him there. Mina clarified that the ruins he was looking at were not the cathedral, but an old church that had been abandoned decades ago. She then pointed in another direction and said that the real cathedral was located there. Eldo was surprised when he saw the massive building. However, he noticed that it did not have the portrait of Jyas, which made him wonder if it was even possible to change jobs there. He asked Mina whether he could enter the ruins without permission. Mina assumed that he was more interested in ruins than religion and told him that he could go there freely without permission. However, she warned him that some thugs might be living there and that, in the worst case, it could even be a bandit's hideout. Still, she expressed confidence that he would be able to handle them easily. Eldo thought that he should not push his luck too far and revealed that he was only an S-ranker. Mina found it hard to believe, so Eldo seriously showed her his card. After seeing it, she was shocked and said that she would report it to the guild and have his rank increased immediately. However, Eldo refused, explaining that having a high rank would not benefit him while he was still inexperienced. Mina responded that he did not seem inexperienced, but she accepted his decision not to raise his rank. Eldo had already confirmed through the battle that the inhabitants of that world used skills in the same way as in the game. However, they were hopelessly bad at fighting, which was why they could only manage basic combat, often using their skills randomly against stationary targets. He realized that there were certain things that required not only skills but also proper stats. For example, even if the sea dragon had stood still and allowed him to attack it for 10 hours, he would not have been able to defeat it with his current attack power. This was the reason why Eldo had not advanced to a higher rank despite being considered a novice. Eldo thanked Mina for the information and decided that he would sneak in. Mina once again advised him to be careful and added that if he needed anything, he could always come to her for help. Eldo said that he would keep that in mind. When they reached the port, they parted ways and Eldo looked around the capital. He thought that it truly deserved its name, as it was far more lively compared to places like Iliot. He took a room at an inn and, while resting, thought about changing his job as soon as possible. However, he realized that since there was a possibility of thugs in the ruins, it would not be wise to go there during the daytime when he could easily be seen. He also thought that people tended to be less alert around 3 a.m., which would make it the perfect time for him to sneak in. With that in mind, he lay down to rest until then. Suddenly, his stomach growled, reminding him that he had not eaten anything since boarding the ship. And since he still had time, he decided to go out and get something to eat. As he walked through the streets, he heard voices and noticed a bar. He felt that it did not seem like a very safe place, but he thought it would suffice. He entered and a waitress welcomed him. Eldo asked whether it was fine for him to dine alone. She replied that it would not be a problem, but since the place was crowded, she would have to ask him to share a table. Eldo responded that he did not mind. He then noticed a woman eating and asked the waitress to bring him the same dish. The waitress informed him that it was a cheeky cow hamburger. When she brought the food, Eldo tried it and found it to be very delicious. All of a sudden, a man entered the bar, angrily confronting the waitress. He claimed that he had already asked her to reserve seats for his party members and questioned whether she had noticed that he was a card holder. The waitress apologized and explained that they did not take reservations. She added that he would have to wait until his party arrived, and only then could they take any available seats. The man grew more irritated, pointing out that there were no vacant seats at all. The waitress politely asked him to wait until a seat became available. However, he rudely insisted that a seat should be made available immediately. He then approached Eldo and demanded that he vacate his seat. He also spoke rudely to the woman sitting across from Eldo. Eldo remarked that the man was being annoying, which made the man turn toward him in anger and question what he had just said. Eldo calmly replied that if the man wanted a seat, he should wait for his party members and take his turn like everyone else. The man continued to demand that Eldo leave the seat. Eldo avoided looking at him and suggested that he calm down, pointing out that his party members had not even arrived yet. He added that by the time they came, he would have already finished eating. Eldo continued eating, but the man, now furious, drew his sword and prepared to attack him. Despite this, Eldo remained seated and quietly observed the man's poor swordsmanship, noticing that his hands were shaking. As the man swung his sword toward him, Eldo used his fork to execute a critical counter, knocking the sword away. Everyone in the bar was shocked. Eldo stood up and remarked that it was only natural for him to defend himself if someone tried to attack him. He then grabbed the man's hand and twisted it, stating that he was using a skill to increase his strength and could easily break his arm if he wished. Even then, the man refused to calm down and angrily asked if Eldo thought he could get away with this. Eldo replied that it was the least he could do to someone foolish enough to draw a sword in a bar, adding that the man should be grateful he was not doing anything worse. The man became even angrier at being called an idiot. Eldo then asked if he was some kind of famous adventurer. The man calmed down slightly and stated that he possessed a bronze card from the Janus Company. He then warned Eldo to be prepared, claiming that he would make Eldo's life miserable. Eldo wondered about the bronze card. At that moment, a boy explained to him that such cards were given to adventurers recognized by a company and represented their fame. Eldo recalled that he had received a similar card from Mina. The man, still in Eldo's grip, warned him not to provoke him further, claiming that Janus would not spare him. Eldo responded that he also had a similar card. When he showed it, the man immediately stepped back in fear, as it was not a bronze card, but a gold card from the Maxia Company. Everyone in the bar was astonished. One man commented that Eldo had already seemed extraordinary for deflecting a sword with a fork, but possessing a gold card from the Maxia Company made him even more remarkable. Eldo was confused and wondered whether it was really such a great achievement. The man who had been threatening him suddenly knelt down and begged for forgiveness, offering to give Eldo everything he had. Eldo replied that he had never asked for his money. He then wondered if the card truly held so much power that it could frighten someone to such an extent. The other people in the bar began to worry about the man who had picked a fight with someone possessing a gold card. It was their first time seeing such a card, and they wondered who Eldo really was. They noted that they had never seen him in the area before, and since he held a gold card from the Maxia Company, he could not be just an ordinary person. Some of them thought that the situation had escalated more than the man had expected. Soon, 2 guards arrived, looking for the man who had caused trouble earlier. Eldo wondered if someone had called them. The man hurried over to the guards and urged them to arrest the person who had attacked first, asking them to put him in jail. The guards appeared confused, but eventually they took the man away. Eldo felt that he had already drawn enough attention and decided that he should pay his bill and leave. Just then, the girl who had been sitting in front of him approached and thanked him. Eldo responded politely, advising her to be careful in the future and to stay out of trouble. He knew that he had only acted to protect himself. After leaving the bar, he was surprised to realize that he had ended up getting a free meal along with a ticket for another free meal. Since he still had some time left, he decided to return and rest until the appointed time. When Eldo tried to sleep in his bed, he could not fall asleep because he was too excited about finally getting rid of his useless novice job. He felt completely prepared, as if he had already taken proper rest and believed he was in perfect condition to fight. When he stepped outside, he noticed that everything was completely silent, as everyone was asleep at that hour. He used his night vision to scan the surroundings and thought it was an excellent and useful skill, although not many people were aware of it. Soon, he leaped toward the ruins from where he had already heard some noises, realizing that there must be people inside. As he carefully approached the building, he felt that the residents of the church were still awake, so he decided that it would not be wise to engage in a fight at that time. Upon entering, he noted that there were different types of churches in the game, and such places usually had a job change chamber underground. He also realized that the voices he had heard were coming from the basement. He headed downstairs and found a door. From this, he understood that all the voices were coming from inside, but the room was locked from within. He concluded that entering from there would be a bad idea. Therefore, he went outside to the backyard where he found an old well. He knew that such churches usually had a back entrance to the basement. As he climbed down the well, he discovered that there was indeed a door, and he felt that he could enter from there. However, he also realized that even if he tried to enter through that route, he would be spotted quickly. He understood that he had to make a move soon, otherwise he would inevitably be forced into a fight. Firstly, Eldo went through the main door and headed downstairs, where he created a distraction by making noise. Before the others could get up to investigate, he rushed at high speed toward the well and jumped in, using his landing technique to descend safely. As the people went out to check the disturbance, Eldo realized that it was the right moment for him to move. He eventually reached the storage room, though he was unsure whether such items actually existed in that area. He recognized the drugs there as the same ones that had appeared during a past episode in the game, where an evil organization had distributed them across the land, causing numerous incidents. He assumed that this was likely how the organization funded itself, but he knew it was not the time to dwell on such matters. He opened the door to look into another area, but suddenly a bandit spotted him and shouted, calling everyone over and announcing that there was an intruder. The bandits were shocked at how Eldo had managed to get inside, but he did not concern himself with their reaction and allowed his archers to fire at them. As Eldo dodged the attacks, he thought that he needed to change his job as quickly as possible. He then noticed a portrait on the door of another room and inferred that it must be the job change chamber. He immediately entered and found various items inside along with the statue. He felt relieved, believing that he would finally be able to change his job. To buy himself some time, he pushed wardrobes against the door to block the bandits from entering. He then stood before the statue, recalling that the priests used to chant spells corresponding to the profession they desired. He remembered that the class he sought combined recovery magic with offensive abilities, making it suitable for both close-range and long-range combat. It was an overwhelmingly powerful class, far superior to most high-level jobs, and was even considered capable of breaking the balance of the game. He realized that the job he had been granted was the Sage class. Suddenly, Eldo began to glow. After a while, he observed his body and noted that it did not feel the same as it had in the game, realizing that this was what changing jobs felt like in reality. At that moment, he noticed that the bandits were breaking down the door. He understood that he did not have the luxury to linger, so he immediately cast a fireball toward them to clear his path. Meanwhile, the bandits heard the commotion coming from their warehouse. As Eldo made his escape, he used his floating skill to rise into the air and flew away. The bandits searched for him on the ground, unaware that he was observing them from above. With everything accomplished, he left the area. However, after he had put some distance between himself and the place, an arrow was suddenly shot at him, which he barely managed to dodge. A man then appeared, having smoothly infiltrated the area during the earlier diversion, and remarked that Eldo was quite skilled. Eldo noticed the crest on the man and recognized it as the emblem of the Garden of Despair, an organization whose true purpose remained unknown but was believed to be a criminal group intent on destroying human society. Although there were other evil organizations in the game, the Garden of Despair was by far the most dangerous among them all. The man was surprised that Eldo even knew their name and wondered where he had heard of it. Eldo replied that it was only natural to know the names of those who were trying to sink the ship. The man was astonished that even the Sea Dragon incident had been classified among them. Eldo thought that he had only been bluffing to gather information, and it seemed that his guess had been completely correct. The man mentioned that he had received a report about someone carrying a shabby sword on the ship, and questioned whether Eldo was the one who had prevented it from sinking. Eldo wondered if that was what the man was implying, and asked him to stop referring to it that way, pointing out that he had paid around 150,000 gil for that sword. He then asked what the man would do if he really were that rumored person. Without any hesitation, the man invited Eldo to join their organization, explaining that he was one of the top-ranking members who could vouch for Eldo's abilities. He tried to lure him with promises of money and even women, anything he desired. However, Eldo already knew that they were not truly interested in recruiting him. He realized that his best option at the moment was to survive the situation, and for that, accepting the offer might be useful. After all, even though he had changed his job to Sage, he was still only level 5. Joining them, even temporarily, might allow him to uncover their true motives. Despite these thoughts, Eldo refused, stating that he had no interest in their organization. The man, who introduced himself as Deepak, said that he was not asking Eldo to stay forever, and suggested that he could simply try it for a week. He added that the money would be excellent and that Eldo would be free to kill as many people as he wanted. He further claimed that once Eldo experienced killing, he would become addicted to it. Suddenly, Deepak attacked him. Eldo attempted to dodge the first strike, but the second one managed to hit him slightly. He realized that the first attack had only been a distraction. Eldo then remarked that he had never killed anyone before, so he could not say whether it was addictive, but he could start by trying it on Deepak. In response, Deepak threw several knives at him, all of which Eldo dodged with ease. As Eldo moved in to strike with his sword, Deepak blocked and countered, attempting both a push and a slash. Eldo quickly jumped back to create distance. He realized that he was using both hands while Deepak was fighting with only one, yet Deepak still appeared stronger and more skilled based on his overall abilities. Deepak then spread his arms and declared that it was only a matter of time before Eldo would die. Eldo used magic to fire clay bullets at Deepak, but Deepak swiftly dodged them all, remarking that it was no wonder Eldo's sword felt so light, as he had been a wizard all along. Eldo then moved in again with his sword. As Deepak focused on blocking the attack, Eldo secretly used clay bullets aimed at Deepak's leg. Deepak quickly realized that Eldo had only pretended to attack directly while his true target had been his leg. As a result, his leg became stuck to the ground, preventing him from moving. Eldo had actually used a sticky bomb, a trap spell that released a sticky substance upon impact. The spell closely resembled clay bullets, and since it was nighttime, it was extremely difficult to distinguish between them in the dark. This was why Eldo had initially used real clay bullets to deceive him. Deepak grew irritated as he struggled to free himself while Eldo stood calmly in front of him, stating that it was unfortunate that Deepak would not be able to kill him. Eldo then attacked with a flame bomb, setting Deepak on fire. However, despite his agonized screams, Eldo noticed that Deepak was still alive. Soon Deepak began transforming into a monstrous form and struck the surrounding area, even breaking part of the bridge. The sight was terrifying, but Eldo managed to dodge the attack by using his floating ability. He recognized the transformation as the effect of an artificial devil drug. He recalled that in the game, members of the organization's higher ranks used this drug when they were cornered. It granted immense strength, but caused them to lose their intelligence and prevented them from ever returning to their human form. Eldo realized that if Deepak had used this drug, then both the name and the crest of the organization were not merely coincidental. They truly matched the game. He understood that if he did not defeat Deepak properly, the situation would become extremely dangerous. With that in mind, Eldo apologized, acknowledging that he had no choice but to defeat him. He launched a fire arrow at the monster, but it was blocked. Without hesitation, he followed up with multiple fire arrows which the monster could no longer defend against. Eventually, Deepak was completely burned down. After the battle, Eldo left the area and returned to the inn. The next morning, when he woke up, he noted that there had been no further attacks during the night and felt relieved that he had successfully defeated the monster. However, he also understood that he needed to be better prepared for such battles in the future. He knew that sages typically wielded staves, although they could cast spells without them. However, the difference in power when using a proper staff was significant. He recalled that during the Sea Dragon incident, they had only succeeded because everyone had been fully equipped. With this in mind, Eldo went to an armor shop. He remembered that he had come to the capital to explore its impressive selection of equipment. However, most of the staves available there were designed for wizards. Although a sage could use any type of staff, it was clear that to truly bring out the full potential of the class, he would need a staff specifically made for a sage. While Eldo was looking around, someone approached him and asked if he needed any help. To his surprise, it was Mina. She greeted him warmly, led him to a separate chamber, and asked what he was looking for. Eldo agreed that he did need assistance, explaining that he had been searching through various stores all morning. He also mentioned that the card she had given him was incredibly useful, as people treated him very politely whenever he showed it. Mina laughed at his remark and asked what exactly he was searching for. When Eldo mentioned that he was looking for a staff, she became confused, as she had assumed he was a swordsman. Eldo denied this assumption and demonstrated his abilities by producing a torchlight with magic, explaining that he was actually a sage. Mina wondered if that meant he was some kind of hybrid between a swordmaster, a swordsman, and a wizard. Eldo clarified that it was purely a magical class and added that in terms of swordsmanship, he was no stronger than a novice. She then asked how he had managed to deflect the Sea Dragon's attack. Eldo replied that it was simply basic swordsmanship, something even a novice could accomplish. Mina was amazed and referred to him as a monster, but Eldo dismissed the compliment, stating that anyone could achieve the same result with enough practice. However, he emphasized once again that his true class was sage. Mina commented that it seemed like a waste for someone like him not to be a swordsman. Still, she reasoned that since he was strong, he must have a good reason for wanting a staff. With that, she decided to show him the best staves available in the shop. As Eldo examined them, he was impressed by their quality. However, he realized that none of them were suitable for a sage. Just then, one particular staff caught his attention and he asked if he could hold it. Mina said that she did not mind, but she would not recommend it, explaining that it was an artifact excavated from ancient ruins and was considered the worst staff they had. Despite this, Eldo picked it up, feeling as though it was perfectly suited for a sage. He believed it was actually a top-tier item, and that others had only dismissed it because a wizard had tried to use it. When he checked the price, he was shocked to see that it cost 25 million gil. Mina explained that artifacts were expensive regardless of their performance. She then added that he could pay using something other than money. Eldo hesitated and mentioned that the only valuable item he had was his sword, which was worth around 150,000 gil. Mina responded that she was not interested in the sword. Instead, she wanted the membership number on the back of his guild card, and in exchange, she would give him the staff, effectively offering him a deal worth 30 million gil. Eldo was confused and questioned whether she was truly offering him such a large amount in exchange for that request. Mina clarified that it was not a forced deal. She simply wanted his guild membership number so that she could make a request to him in the future. She explained that such requests were not mandatory, and she would provide a generous reward to encourage him to accept when the time came. Even so, Eldo remained hesitant and asked whether she thought she was overpaying, considering that he was only an F-rank adventurer. Mina replied that she simply needed to secure him before other companies recognized his true potential. She added that 30 million gil was merely the standard rate for an A-rank adventurer. Eldo understood that she was essentially investing in him, so he gladly accepted the offer. After taking the staff, he prepared to leave and asked her to be gentle when making her request in the future. Mina agreed with a smile. As Eldo walked away, he reflected that it was just like her to provide him with such high-quality equipment, along with extra money. However, he also felt slightly uneasy about the request she might make of him in the near future. Suddenly, Eldo sensed something and felt as though someone was following him. Eldo became alert and asked the person to reveal himself, warning that otherwise he would consider him an enemy. Suddenly, a man emerged from a narrow passage and told Eldo to wait, explaining that he was not suspicious and that he belonged to the guild. Eldo wondered whether the man was a guild staff member. The man confirmed this and said that he had been curious after seeing what Eldo had done the previous day on the cruise. Eldo then questioned whether the man had also been present there and asked why he had been following him. The man admitted that it might seem rude, but explained that he had been observing Eldo while scouting strong adventurers for the guild. He further explained that the guild had formal subjugation positions which, unlike regular adventurer work, offered stable and high rewards, though they required sufficient strength. He compared these roles to civil servants and mentioned that the guild wanted to recruit Eldo while his rank was still low. However, he added that accepting such a position would likely involve handling troublesome requests. Eldo responded that although he appreciated the offer, he preferred doing his own work. The man said he understood and decided to give up for the time being. He added that if Eldo ever changed his mind, he should come and speak to the guild, and that anyone perceptive enough to notice him being followed would always be welcome. He also mentioned that Eldo had been referred by Lysias and that his application would be accepted immediately. After the man left, Eldo reflected that in the game there had been no such thing as formal subjugation positions. Requests had always been updated frequently and nothing would happen if no one accepted them. However, since this was now reality, it made sense that problems would arise if no one handled those tasks. He decided that he would take on requests he could manage. With that in mind, he went to check the quest board, wondering why there were so few subjugation requests in the capital, as he had assumed there would be many. He approached a lady and mentioned that he had a query regarding requests. She agreed to help him, and Eldo asked whether there were any monster subjugation requests available. She replied that there were not many in the capital, explaining that the royal army regularly defeated monsters as part of their training, leaving very few for adventurers. Eldo understood this and felt that he should move to another place. He thanked her and said that he would not be taking any requests there, asking instead if he could report a change in his job. The lady asked whether he had graduated from being a novice and congratulated him, then inquired about what his new job was. When Eldo mentioned that he was a sage, the receptionist became confused as she had never heard of such a job. Eldo realized that people in this world only recognized jobs obtained during the coming-of-age ceremony, and it was unlikely that the job jewel would acknowledge his profession. He understood that in order to register a profession, one had to be certified through a job jewel. For example, if someone was a wizard, they would be certified upon touching the wizard jewel. Eldo apologized and said that he would not be changing his registration. He felt that there was no need to remain there, as not having his job recognized would not harm him. The receptionist apologized as well, explaining that they did not know much about inferior jobs and suggested that perhaps an inferior job jewel might work. Eldo wondered what she meant by that, and she explained that such jobs included berserker and saint. She added that she had seen people with inferior jobs in low-level parties, but they were usually unable to keep up and often quit midway. Eldo understood that such things could happen. He recalled that in the game, jobs were divided into two types, basic and superior. Basic jobs included swordsman, wizard, archer, and healer, while superior jobs included sage, hero, saint, and he knew that obtaining a superior job during the coming-of-age ceremony was extremely rare. In the game, superior jobs were considered highly successful. However, in reality, there seemed to be many failures, and people with such jobs were often treated as burdens. Even when defeating the same number of monsters, those with basic jobs would level up faster. What did not make sense to Eldo was that superior job skills should still be top tier. Even if there were some differences, they should not have been significant enough to justify someone being cast out from a party. Eldo asked the receptionist why the Saint class was considered an inferior job, pointing out that the divine heal skill learned at low levels should still be more effective than the healing abilities of regular healers. The receptionist looked confused and asked what divine heal was. Eldo was taken aback and wondered whether people in this world did not even know basic skills anymore, which made him realize that he no longer fully understood this world. He then said that it would probably be better for him to remain registered as a novice. The receptionist agreed with his decision. Eldo left, thinking that there was no point in staying in the capital if there were no suitable requests available. He considered traveling to another city to try his luck. However, before leaving, he decided to meet Mina. When he met her, they sat down for tea and she asked whether he needed any further assistance. Eldo declined and explained that he had come to inform her that he was planning to leave the capital. He added that despite all the effort he had put into becoming an adventurer and coming there, it had turned out that there were no subjugation requests available. Mina agreed, explaining that the capital was indeed very peaceful and mostly offered miscellaneous requests. However, she pointed out that it would be a waste for the country to let someone like Eldo leave. She clarified that she was not exaggerating, as even a few powerful adventurers could have a significant impact on the economy. She reminded him that he was one of those individuals and asked whether he remembered saving her company's ship from sinking. She explained that the ship had been carrying business executives and guild leaders, including herself, and that if it had sunk, it could have caused chaos in the country. Eldo was surprised and wondered whether it had truly been such a significant event. Mina then asked which country he was planning to go to. Eldo replied that he had looked at a map and decided on Fiest, as it was nearby and suitable for the time being. Mina commented that it was a good choice and that he might find suitable quests there. She then mentioned that there was actually one good subjugation request available in the capital, which involved defeating a C-rank monster known as the Great Mole. Eldo said that he had never heard of such a monster and asked where he was supposed to hunt it. Mina explained that her company owned a field in the capital which was much smaller compared to Breadbasket and that the Great Mole had appeared there. She offered to pay him 500,000 gil for each mole he defeated and requested that he eliminate all of them. Eldo agreed to take on the request. Mina admitted that it would be a difficult task and felt relieved that he had accepted it. She explained that great moles traveled underground, making them particularly hard to deal with. Eldo decided to inspect the situation further, and Mina told him to pick up a map and the request form on his way. Eldo proceeded to make the necessary preparations and left with the map, thinking that the location should be somewhere nearby. However, upon arriving, he found himself in a vast farming region. He was surprised, as he had not known such a place existed within the capital, especially when Mina had described it as a small field. He wondered whether she should have her eyes checked again. Noticing a house nearby, Eldo decided to ask for directions. He knocked on the door and a lady came out, asking whether he needed something from the Maxia Company Farmland Management Office. Eldo replied that he had accepted a request from Chairman Mina. The woman became delighted and asked if he was the adventurer who had taken on the task. She expressed her gratitude and said she would leave everything in his capable hands. Eldo asked her to wait, and she inquired whether something was wrong. He explained that he had come to defeat the Great Mole and asked which field belonged to the Maxia Company. The woman clarified that it was not just one field, but everything he could see around him. Eldo was shocked and recalled Mina describing it as a small field. He began to wonder just how much power and influence her company possessed. He then decided to proceed with the task, but raised a concern saying that it would be impossible to leave the fields completely unharmed, and asked whether that would be acceptable. The woman replied that as long as he did not use fire magic, it would be fine, even if the fields were trampled. She then asked whether he was working alone, mentioning that locating the creatures could take a long time and offering to arrange help if needed. Eldo declined, explaining that the monsters would gather in one place. He said that he would use a skill called ground bait, which spread magical energy across the ground. Since underground monsters relied on sensing magical power rather than sight, He could lure them out using that method. Soon, the great moles began to emerge around him. Eldo prepared his staff and remarked that if they surfaced like that, they would inevitably damage the farmland. He then used Ice Pillar, causing large spikes of ice to crash down on the moles. After defeating them all, Eldo apologized to the lady, admitting that he had caused more damage to the fields than he had intended. The woman told him not to worry, and thanked him for completing the request. With the task finished, Eldo returned to Mina. Her maid escorted him inside, and Mina expressed surprise at how quickly he had returned, asking whether he had forgotten something. Eldo denied this and informed her that he had already completed the task. At first, she showed no reaction, but then she became shocked upon learning that he had defeated 20 great moles. Eldo corrected her, stating that it was not 20 but 31, and added that he had already submitted his report to the guild. Mina was astonished, noting that it had not even been 3 hours, and wondering how he had accomplished it so quickly. Eldo explained that he had used magic to lure them out by spreading magical energy which attracted the moles, allowing him to defeat them all at once. She expressed amazement, saying it was her first time hearing of such a method and questioned how he could use both swordsmanship and magic so effectively. Eldo replied that he specialized in magic and only used the sword as support. Mina once again referred to him as a monster but thanked him for completing the task. Eldo then said that he would now be leaving for the country of Fiasta and asked her to contact him if she ever needed his help again. She wished him good luck, acknowledging that adventurers often had to travel. Eldo thanked her for her time. At the guild, the receptionist handed Eldo a reward of 20 million gil. He was confused by the amount, but she explained that it included additional rewards. Eldo thought that the company truly operated on a completely different level. Afterward, he traveled to the Fiasta Guild. Upon arriving, he noticed that although there were some quests available, they were not many. He wondered whether this was because the area was close to the capital, resulting in fewer monsters. He then considered that if he traveled to the next town, he would at least be able to take on more requests there. Eldo approached the receptionist and said that he wanted to take on some requests, but he asked whether it would be possible to report their completion in a different city. The receptionist replied that it would be acceptable as long as the guild was within the same country. She explained that he only needed to carry the request form along with proof of subjugation, and everything would be processed without any issues. Eldo then selected a few requests, including the subjugation of widow mantises and huge toads. The receptionist expressed her relief that some of the requests were still available. Eldo felt confused by her reaction, so she explained that Fiasta currently had 2 well-known adventurers present, including one known as the Flame Spear, who had recently arrived there. Eldo wondered about the title Flame Spear, and the receptionist explained that adventurers with proven track records were given aliases. She added that since Gillart had gone missing, the Flame Spear was now considered the strongest solo adventurer in the world. Eldo thought that such a person must be extraordinary and felt interested in meeting him. However, he also recalled her mention that Gillart was missing. The receptionist then advised Eldo to be careful. He agreed and left for the forest. Once there, Eldo used search magic to scan the entire forest while remaining in place and quickly identified the targets he needed to subjugate. Before approaching them, he activated invisibility magic. He noted that although using other magic would dispel it, the skill was extremely convenient as it allowed him to launch surprise attacks. He then approached the monsters, and they were caught off guard as their legs were suddenly engulfed by his flame circle attack. They were defeated instantly, and Eldo completed the request. He reflected that using invisibility to get close and then attacking with offensive magic was a basic yet highly efficient method for solo hunting, especially when dealing with large numbers of enemies. Just then he sensed something unusual and wondered where it had come from. Using search magic again, he detected the presence of a girl confronting a monster. He realized that they were engaged in battle and suspected that it might be an area boss, a powerful monster that appeared periodically in specific regions and granted large amounts of experience upon defeat. He considered it a good opportunity to level up. Using invisibility once more, Eldo carefully approached the area to assess the situation. He planned to step in if the girl appeared to be struggling. He then saw the girl, who was wielding a staff, attack the monster, but she was struck and thrown some distance away. Eldo deactivated his invisibility and asked if she was all right. The girl told him to stay away and continued fighting. Eldo observed that the area boss was a raging ape, which moved extremely fast and was even harder to deal with than the sea dragon. What surprised him the most was that a small female adventurer was fighting against such a powerful creature. He felt that he should help her, but he realized that his current skills were not sufficient to defeat the ape. He concluded that he would need to spend some skill points before joining the fight. Eldo realized that he had not yet used his available skill points, so he decided to allocate them and acquired new skills, including blood poison and shadow fog. Once everything was prepared, he set up a trap using a sticky bomb and then used magic taunt to draw the ape's attention. The girl became confused about what was happening. Eldo understood that Magic Taunt was a spell used to attract monsters, but he had not provoked the creature without a plan. Suddenly, the ape was caught in the trap, getting stuck as it fell, with even its face pressed against the ground. Eldo immediately used Shadow Fog, followed by Blood Poison, to attack the ape. The girl approached him and asked whether he had restrained the ape, as she herself had been unable to handle it properly. Eldo briefly thought that someone known as the strongest adventurer should not be saying such things, but he ignored the thought and said that he would heal her first. As he healed her, she became confused and asked what he had just done. Eldo replied that it was simple healing magic. She expressed her amazement, saying that she had never heard of an adventurer who could use both offensive and healing magic. Eldo assumed that adventurers in this world did not understand what a sage was, especially if they were unfamiliar with even basic self-healing abilities. He then said that they should focus on the ape, as it was not completely restrained and his level was not high enough to maintain such powerful magic for long. He added that while blood poison would eventually defeat the ape, it would take too much time. He suggested that they should consider calling for reinforcements, mentioning that he had heard the strongest adventurer, the Flame Spear, was nearby. The girl then revealed that she herself was the Flame Spear, Melia, and added that her acquaintances simply called her Melia. Eldo was genuinely surprised, as he had assumed that someone with that title would easily overpower the raging ape. He realized that the situation was more difficult than he had expected and that she was not as overwhelmingly strong as he had imagined. They then introduced themselves and exchanged greetings. Melia apologized, saying that she felt disappointed in herself for being unable to handle the ape. Eldo reassured her that he had not meant to criticize her. He then asked whether she was called the Flame Spear because she possessed the skill Flame Weapon. Melia confirmed this and asked how he knew about it. Eldo wondered if that meant she had what would be considered a superior job in the game but was treated as having an inferior one in this world. Eldo felt genuinely saddened by the situation. He thought that if Melia had proper knowledge and access to superior skills, the raging ape would not have been a match for her, and they could have already ended the battle. He then asked if she could do something for him. He explained that while he would draw the ape's attention, she should continue attacking it without stopping, as a skill like combo attack would be highly effective. Melia became confused upon hearing about combo attack. Eldo was surprised that she did not know about it. He then instructed her to repeat what he was saying and told her to purchase the skill code for combo attack. As she followed his instructions, she became visibly confused by what she was experiencing. Eldo then told her to swing her spear while activating combo attack through chanting. She attempted it and asked whether simply activating it in that way was how skills were learned. Eldo replied that there were many different ways to learn skills. Melia was amazed and wondered who he really was. Eldo casually responded that he was just a friendly neighborhood F-rank adventurer who happened to know a few things. Melia said that she couldn't believe he called himself a liar and added that he shouldn't be an F-ranker with such knowledge. Eldo agreed that he was an F-ranker. Suddenly, the ape stood up, and Eldo felt that it had finished getting rid of all the glue from the ground, and it attempted to strike, but both of them jumped back to dodge the attack. Eldo told her that he would draw its attention, and that she needed to be careful of its random attacks. She said that they wouldn't be able to get any closer because of the ape's movements. Eldo replied that he would deactivate his status element to attract all the aggro, and asked her to use the combo attack she had just learned. She said that it was impossible, but Eldo assured her that it would be fine, as he would hold the ape back. He told her to stop hesitating and just use the attack. Finally, she gained confidence and told him to leave it to her. Eldo agreed and released his power to grab the ape's attention. As it came to attack, Eldo used his staff to block it with a magic guard and then signaled Melia to attack. She used her flame weapon and struck the ape with a combo attack. After the flash, she noticed that it was still standing, so she attacked again with a different power and delivered a massive blow that made the ape fall. She said that she was truly amazed and had never thought she would be able to use such a powerful attack. Eldo appreciated her efforts and noted that both of their levels had increased. She said that she was surprised it had been so easy to defeat the ape. Eldo thanked her for everything, as the ape had been defeated. In response, she said that it was incredible and that she couldn't believe Eldo was so knowledgeable despite being an F-ranker. Eldo asked her to form a party with him for a while. She wondered about it, and Eldo explained that he had been fighting many boss-class monsters and usually preferred to go solo, but doing everything alone would take too long. He admitted that he couldn't progress fast enough by himself, but with her firepower, they could defeat whichever enemies they wanted. He also proposed that they split the rewards equally, 50-50, and added that he would even teach her some useful skills. He then asked what she thought about the offer. She replied that he had a good point, and that she had no real reason to refuse, even though she still found it hard to believe that he was only an F rank. She added that he didn't seem like a bad person, and then moved forward for a handshake, saying that they should get along well. After their discussion about builds, Eldo explained that she could use her skill points to acquire specific abilities which would determine her fighting style. He added that the tricky part was that she wouldn't be able to learn every available skill as she leveled up, and once a skill was learned, the points spent on it could not be refunded. She wondered what she should do and asked if he knew which skills would make her stronger. Eldo replied that he wasn't sure whether she would like it, but he did have a build in mind that he believed to be the strongest. She asked him to teach her, and Eldo felt that things were moving quite fast. Before they began, he asked whether she had ever learned a skill before. She replied that she had, but before meeting him she had believed that skills were simply acquired through experience and the use of weapons, which was how she had learned the flame weapon skill. Eldo explained that basic skills could actually be learned at the church, although he doubted many people knew about it, as the world itself had limited knowledge regarding skills. He then asked about her level, and when she told him that she was at level 18, Eldo said that she only needed a couple more levels and suggested that they go gain some experience. She agreed, and then asked what they should do with the ape, mentioning that they needed to take it to the guild first. However, Eldo refused, saying that it wasn't necessary. He used a magic circle to make the ape disappear, leaving her shocked as she wondered where it had gone. Eldo explained that he had used magical storage to place it in another dimension. And she expressed her confusion but said that she wouldn't question it, as Eldo seemed to be full of surprises. She added that she would support him as much as she could and suggested that they get going. They continued fighting and defeating boss monsters until night fell. Eldo remarked that they had accomplished quite a lot and suggested that it was enough for the day and that they should return. When they arrived, the receptionist was shocked upon seeing them. Melia stated that they had brought the Raging Ape, an A-rank monster. The receptionist apologized, saying that she had never seen such a creature before, and said that she would call the branch manager. Eldo then called Melia aside and asked if she could pretend that she had defeated it on her own. She became confused and asked for the reason. Eldo explained that he didn't want the credit and that there would be a huge uproar if people discovered that a novice had defeated an A-rank monster. He added that he didn't want to deal with such trouble. She agreed, but told him that if he ever changed his mind, he should let her know. Just then, the guildmaster arrived and asked whether it was true that they had defeated an A-rank monster. Melia confirmed it and asked how much they would receive as a reward. The man was shocked and said that he couldn't believe they had actually accomplished such a feat. Melia pointed toward Eldo and stated that it was mostly Eldo who had done the work. Eldo reacted in surprise and reminded her that he had asked her not to mention that. She apologized, explaining that no one had ever told her to keep quiet about something like this before. The guildmaster said that he had never seen Eldo before and asked for his nickname. Melia replied that Eldo was an F-rank novice. The guildmaster expressed disbelief, stating that an F-rank novice wouldn't stand any chance against an A-rank monster. Melia agreed, saying that she had thought the same, but Eldo was completely different. She added that he was being held back by the system, which did not allow novices to rank up. Eldo, confused, asked whether novices truly couldn't rank up. She replied that it was surprising he didn't know, and explained that beginners were restricted from ranking up, especially those with inferior jobs, as a safety measure to prevent adventurers from taking on quests beyond their capabilities. Eldo then questioned what the issue was if they could simply take on requests of the same level. Melia responded that, although people could once rank up regardless of their job, about 10 years ago when Cardinal George came into power, he reformed the system into its current state. The guildmaster apologized for the inconvenience, but stated that those were the established rules. Eldo reflected on everything he had heard, while Melia reiterated that Eldo was far above F rank and had even managed to hold back the ape's attack. Eldo thought to himself that she seemed to have forgotten what he had told her just a few minutes earlier. The guildmaster, clearly impressed, remarked that despite being F rank, Eldo had achieved something remarkable. He then asked for Eldo's name and whether he was registered in Iliot. Eldo wondered how they knew that, and the man explained that rumors had been circulating about an F-rank novice from Iliot who had fought a sea dragon. The guildmaster excitedly confirmed that Eldo was indeed that person and wondered whether he should promote him. Eldo asked if that was really possible. The guildmaster replied that if Eldo had a recommendation from the branch manager, along with proven achievements, he could be ranked up. He added that Eldo's battle against the sea dragon alone was a worthy accomplishment, and said that Eldo should be grateful. However, the guildmaster then remarked that he himself should be the one expressing gratitude, as he could now boast about this at the next branch manager's meeting. He added that guild staff received recognition for helping adventurers increase their ranks. He then examined Eldo's card and noted that Eldo had a job listed as Sage, which he had never heard of, describing it as one of those inferior jobs with very little information. Melia agreed and mentioned that if she had been born 20 years earlier, she might have been treated the same way as Eldo. All these words lingered in Eldo's mind, but he reminded himself that such things didn't matter, as he already understood what it meant to be a sage. The guildmaster then promoted Eldo, making him an E-rank adventurer. However, he explained that due to the system's limitations, Eldo could only increase his rank one level at a time and should return after achieving another significant feat. Eldo expressed his gratitude, and as they left, they shifted their focus to the sale of the Raging Ape. Eldo handled the transaction, which amounted to over 100 million. He explained that Melia could live comfortably for a month with just 200,000, and with 120 million, they could live for the rest of their lives. He then stored the money using magical storage as it was too heavy to carry. After completing the sale, Melia asked whether they could now discuss skills. Eldo agreed and said that although it was a bit late, they could go over it before heading to the hunting ground the next day. The following day, Eldo had her face a tiger and asked whether she was ready. She replied that she was, but then hesitated slightly and asked him to wait, explaining that the enemy was a blood tiger, which made her a bit nervous. After a while, she attacked and managed to defeat the enemy. Eldo thought to himself that this was the highest DPS class in a siege-type setup, and that it perfectly matched a combo-based hero build. He reflected that if multiple strengthening skills were activated, such a build could handle several opponents at once, making it one of the few job types capable of almost solo combat, which was exactly what a hero class was meant to do. Suddenly, the tiger launched another attack, catching her off guard and leaving her momentarily confused. Eldo quickly stepped in and blocked the attack with his barrier, remarking that it was an excellent combo for her first attempt. She thanked him, but added that it wasn't the time to talk, as the tiger attacked again from another direction with its claws. Once again, Eldo used his magic barrier to protect them. He then explained that heroes possessed a skill called Overguard, which was even stronger than his magic guard. He also described a counter-combo type build that relied on precise guards to repel enemy attacks and grow stronger through them. Using magic detection, Eldo discovered that there were 3 more blood tigers nearby. He said that after dealing with the current one, they should try fighting multiple opponents at once. She felt confused by his suggestion, but before she could respond further, Eldo used a fire arrow and instantly burned the tiger down. Melia appeared somewhat dissatisfied and remarked that it seemed like Eldo could hunt all of them on his own. However, Eldo denied this, explaining that his level was still too low to overwhelm every enemy with his power. He added that this was why he was relying on her to make the hunt more manageable. He then pointed ahead and said that there was a pack of blood tigers further ahead and that they still had plenty of time, so they should continue hunting. Melia agreed and said that she was ready to proceed with the hunt. Eldo demonstrated the hero's defensive skill, Overguard, which greatly surprised her. He instructed her to focus on a single point, and she noticed that her guard became stronger and firmer, making it effective against both single and multiple attacks. She expressed her gratitude, saying that with her offensive and defensive abilities improved, she could now aim for A rank or even S rank. Eldo looked at her confidence and told her that she first needed a perfect skill build. He asked her to listen carefully and explained that she would have to fight the 3 tigers ahead, which were currently feeding on prey. He then asked if she was ready. She replied confidently that it would be a perfect victory. She then leapt from a cliff and struck them with a shockwave, delivering a wide attack that hit all 3 at once. However, as the tigers remained standing and surrounded her, she called out to Eldo, saying that the attack hadn't finished them. She attempted another wide attack, but the tigers were still unharmed and tried to counterattack. She quickly used her barrier to protect herself. Meanwhile, Eldo attacked them with arrows, and after a while he pointed out her mistakes. He explained that her first mistake was not strengthening her shockwave with a support skill, and her second mistake was failing to manage the cooldown of her wide attack. He added that she needed to wait 10 seconds before using the wide attack again and should use other skills in the meantime. She agreed and apologized, admitting that she had gotten carried away in the heat of the moment. And Eldo responded that he was still impressed by how quickly she had managed to defend herself using Overguard and that she clearly had good battle instincts. She blushed and thanked him for the compliment. Eldo then suggested that they move forward. Later, when they returned to the guild, they presented the tiger bodies, which shocked both the guildmaster and the receptionist, as the total count was 73. The guildmaster remarked that he had never expected them to hunt so many, even considering Melia's abilities as a flame spear. She responded that Eldo's abilities were truly remarkable, and that his E rank was an underestimation of his strength. Eldo continued bringing out more tiger bodies from his magical storage, which led the guildmaster to wonder what he was doing. Eldo then explained that he was using magical storage to keep them in a separate space. The guildmaster admitted that he didn't fully understand what it meant, but he was amazed that Eldo was using such an impressive skill. Melia agreed, stating that Eldo possessed great power and knowledge. Yet he chose not to stand out, which left her confused as well. The guildmaster said that he understood and assured Eldo that everything would be kept confidential. Eldo, however, thought to himself that simply asking him to trust his word wasn't very convincing, as he doubted anyone would believe that a novice adventurer was capable of such feats. The guildmaster wondered whether he should raise Eldo's rank to D, as his achievements were sufficient to merit such a promotion. However, he explained that promoting him to C rank would require approval from other branch managers, which would not be easy. Eldo said that he understood and asked him to promote him to D rank for now. The guildmaster agreed and then asked whether Eldo intended to continue hunting. Eldo replied that since they already had enough money, he would focus on leveling up for the time being. Melia stated that she preferred to take on requests in order to accumulate achievements and rank up, as that was the path toward reaching her goal. Eldo felt confused by this and she apologized for not discussing it with him earlier. However, Eldo reassured her that it was completely fine. The guildmaster then mentioned that there was a request suitable only for strong adventurers like them, which involved a reconnaissance mission in the Forest of Death. Eldo felt uneasy upon hearing this, while Melia added that the place was extremely dangerous and that only about 10% of those who entered managed to return alive. The guildmaster further explained that the forest was filled with high-level monsters, which was why the guild had to be very careful in selecting who to send there. Melia then asked Eldo to accept the request. In response, Eldo asked the guildmaster to show him the details of the mission. The guildmaster agreed to show him a rough map of the forest. Around the area he pointed to, there was a conspicuously large pillar standing, and he even drew how it looked. Eldo wondered if it was the ceiling pillar. The guildmaster asked if Eldo knew about it, and Eldo confirmed that he did, explaining that it was the pillar used to seal monsters even stronger than the area boss. He added that in the game, the seal had been broken during an event, leading to the appearance of a powerful monster. The guildmaster explained that his request was to investigate the ceiling pillar, as there had been reports the other day of something resembling it seen from a distance. He said he simply wanted to verify it, and if it turned out to be true, they would need to take countermeasures. Eldo then wondered about the stampede alert. The guildmaster replied that Eldo seemed to know about it as well and asked if he was a guild executive or something similar. Eldo denied this, saying he only knew about it as an adventurer. He explained that during a stampede alert, monsters would begin to gather and growl around the area. The monsters that appeared would run straight ahead as if fleeing from a red boss, causing destruction to villages and towns along their path. The guildmaster told Eldo that they had a warning device that could set up a barrier as a countermeasure. However, since there was only one, they needed to be certain about which town it should be placed in. Eldo accepted the quest, and the guildmaster was very pleased to hear that. Eldo then told Melia that the mission would be extremely dangerous and that in the worst-case scenario, they might get caught in the stampede. However, she replied that she was ready to take the risk. By the next day, they were already on their way to explore the area. As they defeated several monsters along the way, Eldo was surprised and understood why it was called the Forest of Death, as it was filled with vicious enemies. Melia remarked that they could handle them without any trouble and suggested that they keep moving forward. Eldo responded that it was not good to rush and questioned why the achievements were so important. Suddenly, Melia became serious and told him that adventurers had to honor the system. Eldo was confused as it was the first time he had heard those words. She explained that if they became A-rank adventurers and made significant contributions to the country, they would receive a noble rank, which was the only way for adventurers to become nobles. She revealed that her true goal was to regain nobility in the name of her family, which had fallen into ruin and lost its title. Eldo then understood that Melia was trying to rebuild her house. He told her that, in that case, they should continue forward for the sake of those achievements, and she agreed with him. Finally, they reached the ceiling pillar and noticed that its color was orange and that it was pointing toward S. From this, they realized they had about 5 days before the raid boss would appear. Melia wondered if Eldo had understood all of that just by looking at it. Eldo replied that he could determine it to some extent from the color, as it acted like a countdown until the boss appeared, changing from blue to yellow, then orange, then red, and finally black. He felt that 5 days was not much time and said that they needed to prepare for the upcoming battle. They returned to the guild to report their findings. The guildmaster was confused and asked about the condition of the ceiling pillar. Melia replied that a stampede would occur in just 5 days. Eldo added that he did not know whether the guildmaster was aware of it, but the color of the ceiling pillar could be used to determine how much time remained. The guildmaster expressed his gratitude for their report and stated that he would arrange the warding device as soon as possible. He then excused himself to make the necessary preparations. After some time, he returned and informed them that it would take around 4 days to activate the barrier, but he was confident they would complete it in time. For the moment, he suggested discussing their rewards. He said that he would recommend Eldo for a promotion to C rank. As for Melia, he added that if they successfully handled the stampede, he would use it as an achievement to recommend her for the A rank promotion test. He further explained that the city would begin preparing for the stampede and would deal with whatever came their way. However, he said that he would greatly appreciate it if Eldo and Melia could stay and assist them during this time. Both of them agreed to stay. On the day of the stampede, the barrier had already been set up and it seemed to have been activated successfully. Melia remarked that it was her first time seeing such a thing and wondered whether it would be enough to stop the monsters. It was then explained that the barrier's purpose was not to completely prevent the invasion, but to keep the monsters away from the city by covering it with a special type of magic. In this way, the monsters would turn back and eventually disappear from sight. After hearing a strange sound, Melia questioned whether she was the only one who had heard it or if something had actually happened. She then decided to check the situation. When Eldo went to investigate, he found a device nearby and a man who had been stabbed to death. Confused, Eldo asked what had happened. A man explained that the deceased had pretended to be one of the guards in order to destroy the device. Eldo asked what had gone wrong with him, but then he noticed a mark indicating that the man belonged to the Garden of Despair group. He wondered if the man was truly one of its members, as he had not expected them to interfere in the middle of a stampede. Eldo then asked if there was any way to fix the device, but the others replied that it was an ancient mechanism left behind by their ancestors. Eldo realized that it was a device meant for the inhabitants of that world. One man said that he could try to repair it, but even if he succeeded, it would still need time to recharge. The guildmaster realized that it might take another 4 days to activate it again and remarked that the situation was truly dire. He stated that they would have to evacuate the residents immediately and request assistance from other adventurers. Eldo, however, knew that this was not a problem that could be solved simply by running away. Even if they somehow managed to deal with the horde of monsters, the raid boss was on an entirely different level. He understood that no matter what kind of raid boss appeared, it would go on a rampage and no one in the city would be safe. Having no other choice, Eldo flew into the sky and told Melia that he was leaving the city in her care. She asked if he was really going, and Eldo confirmed that he intended to stop the stampede. Melia told him not to be ridiculous, insisting that it would be impossible even for someone like him. However, Eldo told her that he had a plan, although it was not perfect, and that she would have to act as if he might fail. He then flew toward the forest, where he saw countless monsters gathered, realizing that he would not be able to handle them all on his own. Nevertheless, he believed there was one way to stop the situation: by defeating the raid boss. Eldo headed toward the ceiling tower, which was floating in the sky. Suddenly, it burst open, and from within it, he saw a terrifying creature emerge. A massive lightning dragon radiating overwhelming power. Eldo reflected that sages were known as the strongest class in the game, making up around 80% of the player population. He realized that it was now time to demonstrate why that was the case. While in the town, Melia was helping everyone evacuate as the horde approached. A man watching from the watchtower was terrified as the horde was about to reach them. Melia grew worried and moved toward the entrance that was about to be sealed. The others wondered where she was going. She told them to close the gate, adding that she would hold the enemies off for as long as she could. She then went outside, saying that Eldo would not last long on his own and that she hoped he would be safe. Meanwhile, Eldo felt a wave of nostalgia. He recalled that when he had first started playing the game, that very dragon had appeared as a high-difficulty boss in the early stages and had given him a great deal of trouble. Even when he had reached the level cap back then, he had not been skilled enough to defeat it, and had died many times. The dragon unleashed a massive blast from a distance while Eldo stood his ground, thinking that the lightning dragon had an area of effect damage ability just by remaining still. He considered it troublesome, but knew there were ways to counter it. When a lightning attack was launched at him, he dodged it using his anti-magic electric resistance skill, which allowed him to nullify some of the damage. The dragon attacked again, and although Eldo managed to dodge once more, things took a turn when a divine lightning strike descended upon him. The impact dealt heavy damage, causing him to lose a significant amount of HP, more than he ever had in the game, since the divine lightning was a skill that struck directly with immense force. He realized that if he lost focus even for a moment, he could be killed in a single hit. At that time, Eldo was only level 15, whereas one would normally need to be at least level 50 to face such a creature. Eldo healed himself, stating that he had a way to recover as he had defeated the dragon many times in the past and would defeat it again. To do so, he increased his attack field and activated Enhanced Berserk. The Earth field and the over-magic field. He knew that stacking as many enhancement fields as possible, along with imbuing his weapons with the Earth attribute, would be effective since Earth was stronger against lightning. However, his body bore a heavy burden, and it became increasingly difficult for him to control his skills due to the strain. Still, he was aware that his magical power alone had increased 1,000-fold. Eldo looked at the dragon, wondering if it was about to use another divine lightning attack. When it did, he dodged it with ease, thinking that it was simple to avoid since it could only strike downward. He resolved that he would not allow it to hit him again. He then became confused by the dragon's tactics as it suddenly spread lightning all around. However, he concluded that it was merely creating blurred vision and that the next attack in its pattern would be lightning rays. As expected, he dodged them again, knowing that divine lightning descended from above while lightning rays traveled in a straight line. He recognized this as one of the dragon's attack patterns. When the dragon attacked him again, he blocked it with ease and prepared to counterattack. However, he soon realized that stacking so many magical enhancements had its downsides. Not only did it consume a large amount of MP, but it also drained his HP. He felt as though his life force was fading, something he had never experienced in the game. At his current level, he understood that he had only one chance to win. Eldo struggled for a while, and eventually anger welled up within him as the dragon continued to stare at him. He reflected that he had been relying on his knowledge from the game to avoid its attacks. Given the vast difference in their status, he realized that if he fought it head-on, he would not be able to deal even a single point of damage. Finally, he raised his staff, declaring that the only strategy he had left was to stack every enhancement he possessed and unleash his strongest attack in order to kill the dragon. Eldo gathered all his power, channeling the earth magic attribute, and struck the lightning dragon with a gigantic boulder-crushing blow. The impact forced the dragon to the ground, and Eldo wondered if he had finally defeated it. However, he soon realized that the dragon was still alive. Moments later, he noticed the sky above him turning into a storm of lightning. He understood that it was not the usual divine lightning attack and recalled that he had not seen this move in a long time as he used to defeat the dragon in a single strike back in the game. He recognized it as an even more powerful form of divine lightning, the heaven-distorting lightning dragon's last resort, a super powerful magic attack that could not be avoided, the lightning strike of extinction. Eldo was filled with fear, realizing that if he were hit by it, not even his ashes would remain. As the attack descended, he observed that it created a barrier of endless lightning bolts, leaving no space to escape. He regretted not being able to finish the dragon in a single blow, but he knew he still had one last option: to use the small amount of magic he had left for a final attack. He cast the gigantic boulder-crushing blow once more, though its power was only 1/3 of its normal strength. Struggling to maintain control, he barely managed to unleash it, knowing that he had to defeat the dragon before it killed him. In the end, the attack proved sufficient. He succeeded in defeating the lightning dragon, and the subjugation was finally completed. Meanwhile, Melia had been battling the remaining monsters all on her own. As she fought an ape-like creature, she was already exhausted, yet many monsters still stood before her. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. The monsters all vanished. At that moment, Eldo arrived and wondered if she had been holding off the monsters by herself. As he descended, Melia questioned whether he had done something to make them disappear. Eldo apologized for taking so long, explaining that he had managed to defeat the red boss, which had caused the stampede to stop. Melia was shocked to hear this, as the monster had been an S-rank opponent. Eldo then showed her a horn, saying that it was proof of his victory. She examined it and remarked that it was indeed material from an S-rank monster, something she had never seen before. However, the ominous aura surrounding it confirmed its authenticity. Realizing that Eldo had fought the S-rank monster alone to stop the stampede, she concluded that he had saved her life once again and expressed her deep gratitude. Eldo then said that if she did not mind, he had a favor to ask. She agreed, wondering what he was about to say. As she speculated about his request, Eldo stated that he wanted her to take the credit for defeating the boss and stopping the stampede. Melia was left confused upon hearing such an unexpected request. She refused, saying that she could not take credit for defeating the S-rank monster when she had not even fought it, as the reward would be immeasurable and Eldo should be the one to receive the credit. Eldo asked what she meant by that. She explained that it would make more sense for her to take the credit, since under the current system they could only advance one rank at a time. Therefore, it would be better if she moved from B to A rank, while Eldo progressed from D to C rank. She added that Eldo wanted her to become a noble, and having a noble support him would be highly beneficial for him as well. Eventually, she agreed, saying that she would become a noble in order to repay her debt as soon as possible, and Eldo agreed to her decision. She then added that she did not mean to sound repetitive, But Eldo was truly unusual, as it was unheard of for a novice to defeat an S-rank monster alone. She remarked that if she did not know better, she would think he was not even human. Eldo was confused by this, and she clarified that she was only joking, explaining that he was simply far beyond normal. Eldo told her that they should get their story straight before she went out. She replied that he should not worry, and that he could leave everything to her. The scene then shifted to the entrance of the city, where people felt that something was approaching. A guard at the watchtower remarked that it was strange, as the monsters had been about to reach the city but had suddenly disappeared. While they were discussing this, Melia arrived, leaving everyone shocked, and they asked what she was doing there. Melia announced that she had defeated the S-rank dragon that had appeared from the binding pillar, which was why the demons had disappeared. Everyone was surprised and wondered whether she had accomplished that all by herself. She agreed, and offered to show them the dragon's horn as proof. They found it hard to believe and questioned whether it was truly real, and she confirmed that it was, adding that this was why the stampede had stopped. The crowd began cheering, celebrating that they had all been saved by Flamespear. The guildmaster arrived and praised her, saying that she had even defeated the monster from the binding pillar, something they had thought impossible. He explained that although it was theoretically possible to defeat the sealed monster, it was so powerful that no one had ever attempted it, which was why it had been contained behind a barrier for generations. He admitted that he had truly believed they were doomed after the barrier broke, but Melia had saved them all. He then wondered where Eldo was and asked if anything had happened to him. Melia replied that Eldo had been evacuated and that it would have been impossible for him to keep up in a battle against an S-rank monster. The guildmaster agreed, stating that even though Eldo was strong, he was still a novice. He then asked if she could later explain how she had defeated the monster, as such an event was unprecedented, and the information would be extremely valuable. She agreed, but mentioned that she had been so focused on the fight that she could not remember much. Meanwhile, Eldo watched everything from a distance and wondered how things would unfold, hoping that everything would turn out fine. As he observed Melia's reactions, he began to feel sorry for her. As Melia continued speaking with the guildmaster, he learned that she had targeted the dragon's horn because she had realized it was its weak point, and that she had used all her skills at once to destroy it. The guildmaster praised her, stating that the horn was the most difficult part to destroy, and that recognizing it as a weakness required exceptional courage and judgment. He added that her title was well-deserved and not merely for show, and that he would report her achievement of defeating the S-rank monster to the guild leader. With a hesitant expression, she thanked him for his praise. The guildmaster stated that since it was an unprecedented event, it would take some time to process her reward. He also asked if she would be willing to hand over the dragon's horn as proof of subjugation, assuring her that it would be returned later. She agreed. He further mentioned that the reward would be so great that even an A-rank promotion might not be sufficient, and that she truly deserved to be promoted from B rank to S rank. However, he explained that he did not have the authority to make such a decision, so he would vouch for her as strongly as possible, though they would still have to wait for the higher authorities to decide. Once again, he bowed to express his gratitude for saving the village. Afterward, when she came outside, Eldo praised her for her work. She replied that she felt very guilty about everything, and he told her not to worry. She then said that it was fine, as with Eldo's help, she had gotten much closer to her goal, but he would have to wait, as she would repay him twice as much in the future. She then asked what Eldo was planning to do next. He replied that he would continue increasing his level and take on more requests. He added that if there were another place, like the Forest of Death, where moderately strong monsters appeared, he would go there. She was confused and shocked, remarking that such a description was not how most people referred to the monsters in the Forest of Death. Eldo asked whether the current Melia did not see it that way. She disagreed, and said that she had heard an interesting story from someone about a massive outbreak of monsters in the Great Forest of Elias. Since it was very close to the town, there had been a surge of requests to subjugate them. She added that the person was planning to go there and had even asked her to come along, saying that things would go much more smoothly if they worked together. She told Eldo that she would stay behind to wait for assignments from the higher authorities and that he could go with that person if he was interested. Eldo asked whether that was really a bad idea, reasoning that if there were many requests, then he should go. He also remarked that it seemed like this was the point where they would part ways. She said that ever since they had met, she had been helping him, yet she felt that she could never thank him enough for everything he had done. Even though they had not been together for long, she was truly grateful for all that he had done until then. Eldo wondered why she was speaking as if they would never meet again, pointing out that he still needed her to take credit for him whenever he accomplished something significant. She was shocked and refused, saying she would not do such a thing. Eldo laughed and clarified that he had only been joking. She said that she knew he would be fine, but still wished him to take care of himself. Eldo agreed, and they shook hands, expressing their hope that they would meet again in the future. Eldo left for his next destination, Elias. Deep within the forest, in the middle of a heavy rain, a tiger was running at full speed. However, several arrows were suddenly shot at it by other monsters who quickly overpowered the tiger, crushed it, and began devouring it. The scene then shifted to Teresa, who was feeling extremely bored. Suddenly, a woman entered and asked what she was doing, criticizing her for looking dull while working as a receptionist. She added that such negligence was unacceptable for someone serving as the head of a guild branch, and that she could not tolerate such behavior. She warned that if Teresa intended to continue working with that attitude, it would be better for her to quit her job altogether. The woman then brought up the adventurer whom Teresa had assisted in her absence, stating that she had heard Teresa had assigned him a request that was not suitable for his rank. She warned that such actions could damage the guild's reputation. Teresa was shocked and thought that she should probably keep quiet. She possessed an unconscious skill called future insight, which allowed her to perceive the potential growth in other people's abilities. Although she had not fully mastered this skill, she could judge a person's future based on the density of the color she saw. Because of this ability, she had assigned requests to Eldo accordingly. However, she realized that even if she tried to explain, her superiors would not believe her.